to Making Stuff, the podcast about people who make something out of nothing. I'm your host, Eliza Thibault, a musician and journalist who spent years producing creative projects from scratch and paying attention to how things actually get built. On today's episode, we're sitting down with John Sousa, a Rhode Island-based craftsman, musician, and on a personal note, my godfather.
Hi.
Welcome, John.
Hi, Eliza.
I have to start with a question that you probably get all the time, but just because I know listeners are going to ask it, which I could probably, probably guess what the question is.
I have no idea the question is. Why are you here?
Why are you here? Where's your life going? No, okay, well, maybe you don't get this question all the time, but I figured I had to just get it out there. Related to the famous composer John Philip Sousa, correct?
I used to get that question more often. When I was in basic training, I'd be calling home, used to call collect. I don't know if your generation even knows what that is. But we used to call collect.
Yeah.
And calling collect from John P. Sousa. And then they would always ask me if I was related to John Philip Sousa. And eventually I got sick of saying no, so I said, yeah.
Now, do you even know? I mean, is it possible that you are? And
No,
have you done?
No.
Yeah, no way. Is the P stand for Philip in your name?
It's for Paul, yeah. So, so I wouldn't be confused with John Philip.
So you make a lot of things by hand, including instruments, and you do woodworking. But I was hoping to focus on your leatherwork today. I know it's some of the most beautiful things that you make. So tell us how you got into the world of leatherwork.
I went to Provincetown in the mid-'60s, and I bought a leather belt, very plain belt. And I'm glad it was just put together by 4 holes in rawhide. And it rings. So it just ripped on tension. And I love this belt. I loved it so much that I wanted more things out of leather. But I couldn't afford them. I'm not sure how I was able to afford this belt. But, and I kept looking at it thinking, I wonder if I could make this. I went to a shop nearby. It wasn't a very good shop. But there was a young hippie there who turned me on to shops up in Boston. So I went up there and, bought some money. And I bought some dye, rawhide, and I bought a whole bunch of rings. And I just looked at what I had and I made it. Pretty good. I'm very visual. So can generally look at something and duplicate it. So I did. I duplicated exactly the first one. And I thought, all right, well, this is cool. And then I started trying other things, simple things, wristbands, And luckily for me, though, everything I do, I think kind of has like a little side story that is a big part of what kept me interested. For example, there was one shop that I stumbled on where one of the owners loved to chat and share ideas. So I spend, how much time does it take to buy stuff? 10, 15 minutes, to look at it, decide on it, and walk out. I would spend an hour just talking with this guy. And I learned a lot from him. So again, with the leather, it all came down to me wanting or needing something and not being able to afford it and finding a product is thinking, maybe I can do that. And the leatherwork, it's been a really fun, I must say, journey experience for me. Around Christmas time, I would make more things. People would buy me tools for Christmas, and I would making more things. And then at some point, people were asking, I didn't have a shop. I didn't want a shop, so I take pictures of them, right? And eventually, on a rare occasion, I didn't do it all that much, but I made enough stuff for occasion. I would be at a restaurant and I see one of my handbags. Yeah.
Purchased it and just worn it out for the night to dinner or something?
They had one of my handbags. I knew the bag. And then it was, I didn't say anything. I just enjoyed seeing my handbag in a restaurant.
So first, just, for people who haven't seen your products, lay out the different things that you've made in the, I guess, 5-6 decades you've been doing this?
Since the 60s. What I have not been able to find, I have somewhere, I have slides of some things that I have not been able to find. I've got vests that I made, hats, sandals. At some point, I started messing around with sculpture. There's like a little vase holder or a whatever holder you want it to be. Paul has a little thing that I made for him. Yeah,
That's my dad
that's
for,
right.
for listeners who
Yeah,
don't know Paul.
that's my best friend. Has a reed holder that I sculptured. I sculptured using two kitchen plates. I wet the leather and stretched it out onto and tack it over the plate, and that gave it its shape. When it dried, it kept that shape. That I cut it and stained it and punched the hole and then stitched it.
Like a canteen
Looks
shape,
like
like round
yeah.
and with like a little hole.
And he put flowers in it. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And there was a point by which I was when I was teaching it at the prison.
Would you mind sort of backing up and walk through like how you went from making leather work to getting hired or working as a volunteer? I'm not sure which it was in a prison. Like someone must have contacted you or you applied for something.
Well, I was making things, taking pictures of them. Mainly so if somebody wanted something, I would show several bags that I made and say, all right, I left a handle on this, like this. I don't like any of it. Try something different. So I just had some photographs. The Rhode Island State College from the Arts got grant money in the 70s, late 70s, 77. They hired, I think it was 8 artists to work there. It's called Arts and Corrections, to be teaching art at the prison, the state correction facility. And so they had a painter, they had a poet, prison teaching ceramics, a writer, and a musician. And they wound up getting the job to teach leatherwork. And so that was a lot of fun. I couldn't do it forever, but for the time I was there, it was a lot of fun. Because I was working through the State Council of the Arts. So they actually, some of that grant money actually went to me to get supplies for my own, because they wanted me to continue to be active in making things. So what I would do is I would make something and bring it in to the prison and show them. And they would make things from scratch. They didn't make vests or hats, because I think they might have maybe taken a little bit too much leather, but they made handbags, a lot of belts, pouches, wristbands, guitar straps. And that was a lot of fun. Like I mentioned, a journalist got wind and contacted me and asked me if she could do a story. So at first I said no, because they're not going to want me to bring a journalist into the prison. And when I mentioned it to my boss, he said, "What do you mean no?" Well, they wanted some publicity. They want some good publicity. So I called her back. I said, "If you still want to come in, we can do that." And it was, I was warned by some of the guards, some of the staff, that bringing a journalist, had potential problems. Like, the inmates. They warned me that the inmates would tend to crowd the journalists and start complaining about their lives there, about their situation. That didn't happen. No. They came in. I had 2-hour class. Came in. They were happy to see her. They're really friendly, and we just did the class. She took pictures, talked to them, and yes, that was cool.
Purpose of these classes, because you mentioned a musician came in, a writer came in, a poet, to basically provide enrichment for the prisoners, or was it more vocational or kind of a little of both? I mean, because I wonder if people who were there could take these skills when they got out of prison and continue making
that would be
products.
A byproduct, perhaps. So it's called Arts and Corrections, and none of us. They hire artists. So none of us were therapists. So we couldn't call what we did therapy, but we could call it therapeutic. That makes sense. So, and I have no doubt that it was. I mean, there were some guards who I remember calling me. They loved it. They loved that I was coming in. They said, while they're working on their projects, they're not thinking about other things that would concern them. So they were pleased. And fortunately for me, I was bringing in a craft, which I think it made it a little bit more easy for people to try out. Even though they never done before, it just seemed a little more accessible to them, perhaps. Some of the artists had some little difficulty, like someone might be teaching, say, I don't know, painting class. And a lot of people feel like, well, I have to be talented. At least back then, people thought, I have to be talented to do this. I don't have talent. But they seemed a little more open to trying leather work. And I would show them, I would take them step by step. We always had scraps of leather so they could practice. After 2 weeks, they saw some of the work coming out from the inmates. And I remember my boss at the time telling me, we're pleased. You're on your own. I mean, if you need me, call me. Otherwise, you're probably not going to see me. And so I had a lot of fun. That job. Then after, if it was the grant money stopped after a year and a half, and that job gave me the experience that I needed to go work and teach. Use teaching skills to work as a therapist at Butler Hospital, which is a psychiatric hospital. So there I was teaching leatherwork, which I already knew. Hadn't done any woodworking. So the occupational therapist that I was working with, they told me what I needed to know for woodworking so I could teach it to patients. And in occupational therapy, we would use crafts as an assessment tool. The patients would get to make something. But for us, it was an assessment tool. See how well the concentration is, how well they're doing with the medications they're taking, interpersonal skills with me and with one another. And so I got into a lot of woodworking then. And then I managed to hook up with, at the hospital, there were people who were taking care of woodworking people who just did work for the hospital. But some of these people are really good craftsmen. And so they showed me a lot of stuff, and I kind of got into that,
Yeah. You sort of learned on the job.
Yeah.
While you were, And you also have led drum circles, like done some music therapy.
I worked at Butler for 10 years, starting in 1980 to 90. And then I left, started working as a massage therapist. During the housing crisis,
there's a therapy through line.
I didn't thought about that.
And everything that you do. At least they're a therapeutic.
It's been therapeutic for me. And because during the housing crisis, the massage business got really slow for me. So I remember talking to one of the people I used to work at the hospital back in the 80s, about things being slow. And I remember she said, "Come back to work at Butler. Come back part-time. Don't come back full-time." She said, it'll eat you up. It'll kill you. But come back part-time. And so it had changed a lot. But, and again, the stuff that I was doing before, we had a space for it. Patients would come down. And now I was working on the ITU, the intensive unit. And the population I was working with was thicker at that point. Again, on that unit, they couldn't leave the unit unless it was with staff. And so I was doing groups. Some were talking groups, some were craft groups. And that's where I got the idea to do a drumming circle because I felt like I can't think of anything. I wanted to give them something. I wanted to do something with them where I wasn't talking down to them, where I could challenge them. But I didn't feel like that there was a lot of opportunity for me to be doing that anyhow. And so a friend of mine, musician friend, said, well, why don't you do a drumming circle? And so I'd sing drumming circles. I'd never been in one.
Well, not to interrupt you, but I mean, you're a very talented musician. Do you consider yourself more bluegrass or folk?
More folk.
How do you describe
Probably
your
more folk
genre? Okay. And you play guitar and you play string bass. Your primary instruments?
There's some odd instruments that I play. Like, I play, well, not so odd, but I played Irish drum called a boron. You hold it on its side. But I didn't make that. The only instruments that I've really made have been a tongue drum. So it's just a box, and you cut out these slits, different sized slots. And I use mallets with a rubber balls at the end, and to get a softer percussion. Again, I made those for kids, for my nieces and nephews and my daughter at the time, one Christmas. The something you've seen has the door chime, and then I made another thing. This is called a limberjack.
Those who are just listening and not watching, John is holding up what looks like a wooden marionette that's attached to a stick.
I'll send you a video. I'll send you a video of this too, of me playing it.
Christmas is coming in like 11 months, and so if you gift me one. I said Christmas is coming in about 11 or no, 11 months. So if you want a gift,
I can make that easy. First time I saw that.
One of everything, though, so it would be very valuable.
First time I ever saw one of these was at my first ever bluegrass festival. I didn't even know what bluegrass was. A friend of mine talked me into going to North Carolina and going to this bluegrass festival. He guaranteed that I was going to like it. It changed my life. And I saw people playing, jamming, and I saw somebody playing the limberjack. And that's how, and later on, I thought, I remember seeing some, but I didn't really like them that much. And I thought, I can make this.
And
what's that?
Instrument? I thought it was just a cute toy. Well, you're saying it's an instrument? You
can play, again, when I see the video, they'll have the music in the background, and you get to hear it dancing. It's dancing. It's a percussion instrument. I sit on this pot, and then this pot, the limberjack dances on top. And the way you get the dancer is by hitting this. So this hits the leg, and then the legs start to dance. And
are you able to do that quickly? Because there's an audio version of this too, so it doesn't matter. Like with that, we could just hear it.
All right.
I love it. Thank you.
I didn't make that for the nieces and nephews because I knew the parents were going to want to hear that all day.
Right. So I did want to go back a second. You mentioned a housing crisis. Are you talking about the housing crisis in Rhode Island in the 90s? And
it was in the 90s. Yeah, when it was in Rhode Island. It was everywhere. It was everywhere as far as I know.
Rhode Island particularly
people were losing jobs, their job. And so it worked out because what I did, I went back to Butler part-time and I continued seeing some of my clients.
Okay. That was cutting back on your massage therapy work because people couldn't afford it and none people could afford it. And then that kind of, got you back into Butler. Got it. And when you were doing these drum circles, were those with drums that you made yourself, or were you just sort of using basic hand drums?
Once I got the idea, then I started looking for cheap drums that I could get and bring into the hospital.
Yeah.
And I would bring my boron, my Irish drum. I'll bring that in. I would bring my bones. I play bones too. And Poland Springs cooler jugs, the water fountain. Those jugs, when they're empty, have a really nice percussive sound. So I remember saving some from my office, and bring them in and using them as drums. And then I found drums. We couldn't have anything that could be made into a shop, like made out of ceramic, because if someone broke it, then you have pieces of ceramic that could be dangerous. Yeah. So I found these wooden drums, metal drums, as initially, they told me I couldn't do that. They said I couldn't do drum circles at the hospital. I'm not sure. There was, I think, maybe, I don't know what the reason was. It probably had to do with safety. But I remember on a weekend when none of the brass were there, I walked in with the drums one day, and we just did it, Oh, I want to talk into. I'd never done a drum circle before that, but I talked to a drummer in California, and he was so wonderful. Again, it's all part of the fun in all these things, the way they come together. He was very encouraging. He said, just do it. As long as somebody can provide a hot beat, it's going to work out. It might sound like crap in the first few minutes, but let it play out. And he was right. It worked out beautifully to the point where, in mental health, it's not uncommon for people to wind up needing more than one hospitalization. People do come back. And so what happened is that they would come back. The first thing they would ask me, are we going to do a drumming circle today? And I would tell them, well, go to the community meeting and talk it up, because you can talk it up a lot better than I can. And they would do that. And then we would get more people. Yeah. And then eventually the hospital invested in a drumming mentor, and they invested in drums. Yeah.
Why didn't they have the reaction of, or maybe they did it first, like, oh, I don't know how to play a drum. What's the point of this? That type of thing. Like, why did, for the people who found it rewarding, why do you think?
Oh, because the same music, we all find music rewarding. Playing music is something I'm so glad I got into. I love it. I love it. I mean, I can remember coming home and having to practice for a gig that was coming up and being tired, being bitchy, and just not wanting to practice. Within 5 minutes, and this didn't happen most of the time, it happened every time. Within 5 minutes, my mood changed, my energy changed, life was better. Music is, as Buffy St. Marie, a folk singer-songwriter, put it, it's my crying towel. It's everything. It's my and then with the patients, just their excitement, their ability. They might not all be able to articulate exactly what that feeling is, but we all tend to know good feelings most of the time when they're there, And for me, again, music, playing it, I can't say enough about it. You're in the moment. It's natural. It's an act of mindfulness. People talk about mindfulness, and there are wonderful ways to engage with and to use things like mindfulness. Music is by nature, but you really, you can be frustrated trying to learn something. That stuff can happen. If you're performing, you can be intimidated and nervous about about the stage fear. But really, in its pure sense, it's an act of mindfulness. You're in the moment, nowhere else. I love it. Yeah.
Totally engaging. Like you kind of go into this.
And then when we do the drumming circles,
exists. Yeah.
Again, I would be the hot beat. I would probably have the deepest sound so people could hear it. And they would just come together. There'd be textures, and they were loving it. They were loving it.
Yeah. I was just thinking that as you were talking, like if you're playing music by yourself, whether it's drums or guitar or bass or singing, you're sort of creating or entering really this space or this portal by yourself. But in that setting,
Yeah.
everybody's
Yeah.
entering it with you. You're all sort of coming together in this way that you probably can't fully describe with words, but you all experience it nonetheless. Does that feel?
And I'm on the more extroverted side. So, that
Oh, I know you don't like talking with people or introducing yourself. You're very antisocial.
just ask me a question.
Just kidding.
Ask me a question and hope you don't have anywhere to be.
Right. But sorry, you said you see yourself as an extrovert.
Yeah, mostly. I like jamming. I like playing with other people. And I like playing alone. I just don't like being alone as much. Going back to leather, I remember having projects to do, and I could spend maybe a few hours working on something, and I had to leave the house, go somewhere. I can have a coffee at home, but I have to go somewhere so I was around people and have the coffee, even if I didn't talk to anybody. I just need to be around people. Yeah.
Part of the human race. There are other people who exist in this world. Yeah. Questions for you. Primarily self-taught everything you do. I mean, you said you kind of figured out leatherwork on your own. Woodworking, you learned a little bit from the hospital.
From other craftsmen. I've been lucky enough. Go on.
And then
they told me a lot. They told me a lot.
You would have had to have either worked with some kind of mentor or done some apprenticeship to learn these crafts, or I guess just studied the objects on your own and just try to figure it out, right?
I learned from everybody. An example is that we had a patient at the hospital, back in the 80s. He made a belt, and I remember he stained it a certain color, a dark color, and he didn't like the color. He wanted a lighter color, and he said, I remember him saying he's just going to sand it. He's going to sand it, and then use a lighter color. And we debated. I said, you can't do that with leather. You can do the wood, but you can't do that with leather. Well, as soon as I walked away, he did it. he sanded it. And then either he did it or I helped. I can't remember the details, but he put this lighter color on, and it has such a rich finish that I started doing that. Basically, I learned that from him.
So he experimented. He broke the rules, and it actually turned out well.
And so I would do that because it had an antique look. It looked like it had an old or antique look.
Is it more fair to say that you're a self-taught artist and craftsman, or that you've picked up things along the way in your conversations with people?
Both. But I've taught myself most of what I learned, but I don't know. I've been lucky to be able to just hook up with people and them being very willing to show me what they know. I've managed to latch on to other craftsmen, and then there's books. Now there's videos, But I remember with the door chimes, seeing some door chimes at a craft shop, and I loved them. I just loved the sound. I loved everything about them, and I thought I couldn't afford it. So I took a good look at it. This was in the mid 80s, and then just went home and got some oak, cut it down.
You keep crediting the people who've answered your questions along the way, but clearly you have the talent and aptitude to make all of these.
I appreciate that. It's been really a lot of fun. Teaching it has been a lot of fun. And learning. Yeah.
And you've sold very little of what you do, right? Like why have you not created, John's shop or I can't think of any clever names right now.
John's shop sounds good.
Go ahead. basic, but it gets to the point.
I can't make too many of the same thing. If I had a shop, I would have to make a lot of the same thing. My ADD kicks in right away. I got to get bored and I lose interest. And then I put things off. I would starve. I would lose. My shop wouldn't have.
Not make any money.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. Plus you have the overhead.
I wouldn't be able to make the rent. And so, so just doing the stuff on my own. Sometimes I would sell stuff. And then I remember making a woolen hat. You know, I had sheepskin, and I was hitchhiking at the time, 60s, and I got, caught outside for a long time to get a ride with, it was freezing cold. Back then I didn't wear hats. And so I went home. The next day I just...
To interrupt, but I think people still wear hats when it's cold.
Back then I wasn't wearing a hat though.
Here.
I had an afro. I didn't need a hat.
Oh, I see. Like the post Kennedy years, and people didn't. They're like, "Oh, we don't need hats. We just have a lot of hair."
That was the 60s. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So the next day, I just cut out pieces. Had an idea what I was going to do, and just made this bull hat. With the sheepskin. And it was really nice and warm. I have no idea. I have no idea where it ended up. I probably just gave it to somebody.
Question I ask everybody who comes on this show, which is career-wise, what would you do if you weren't making stuff?
Oh, wow. I don't know. I have no idea. Because making stuff, again, I didn't have a shop, but I got to teach it. And that was wonderful. That was a wonderful experience. It's always been. And then, what would I do? I can't imagine having not done it. But there was never a plan. Never planned to be a craftsman. I was starting off with a belt. I want more than one of these belts.
The title of your book.
That's right. This started
That's
off
your
with
memoir.
That's a good idea.
A lot of different directions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, John. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And that is it for this episode of Making Stuff. If you found this conversation engaging or inspiring, you can find more episodes and resources at makingstuffpodcast.com. There, you can also buy us a virtual coffee so we can keep the episodes coming. Thanks so much to our guest, John Sousa. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Eliza.
I'll see you next time.